So on today's show, I'm going to bring back a guest that I had on probably about almost 4 years ago. And I ran across Christine Maynard on Facebook, and we became friends somehow. I can't remember how we became friends, but I noticed that, number one, she was a really fine writer, and number two, she was going through a completely hellish experience when it came to her body and these kinds of mysterious diseases and maladies that the medical industry isn't really prepared to deal with, either due to the fact that it's out of their realm of specialization, or they just don't feel like it's financially in their best interest to go in and solve something. In any case, I brought her onto the show, and she was really articulate and incredibly well informed about her own condition, and was not in any way, shape, or form a crybaby. I mean, she was accepting that her body was having some real challenges, and also being a bit of a bulldog when it came to trying to figure this stuff out. Anyway, long story short, over the years, Christine and I have become good friends. And she's been working on a book called Duped for as long as I've known her. And she recently finished that book. And I actually have it in my possession. And it is fantastic. And anytime anybody creates something and finishes it, whether it's an album or a movie or a video or a documentary or a book, I think we should celebrate that, because that's a really important aspect to who we are and why we're here, is this whole act of creativity. And writing a book is like running a marathon. It's not easy, and especially one as varied and complex and as multidimensional as Duped is. And Christine is on the line right now. I'm just going to try and give this a bit of a summation, and she can kind of fill in the blanks. It's not only about the medical condition that she's suffered through for many years and the frustration she's dealt with the medical industry, but it's also her story. And her story is a lot like our story. And there are layers and levels of known conspiracy, rings of power that operate behind the shadows, make decisions about us and our lives. And it's also about the unspoken conspiracy that we have with each other. And there are levels of betrayal and disappointment, redemption, forgiveness. They're all part of this. And the writing is incredibly rich. It comes right out of that kind of Faulkner-esque Southern style of metaphor and allegory. And I just think it's a real triumph that, number one, she finished the book, and number two, that it's so good. So, Christine, thank you for writing Duped, and welcome to the show.
Hey, Robert. Hello, listeners. I couldn't ask for a better intro. You better show up on Tuesday at the book signing at Bookwoman in Austin and say just that. That's really, you've captured it.
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll just edit this, and I'll put it on my cell phone, and I'll just hit play on my cell phone. Because there's I don't think I can get back there.
I'm so happy to read today from Duped. I want to say that whereas the experiences I've gleaned from an entire lifetime are contained in what for me is my opus, that it is fiction, with a disclaimer.
Okay.
I've said it off Louisiana, and it is multi-layered. It addresses relationships. It's written from Amelia's point of view, the protagonist. And she's very savvy as far as the world and working international jobs, but very naive as far as relationships, because like we all do, we always think everyone is like us. So if we're truthful, we expect that in others. So it's about an unduping of a woman named Amelia. And this character does reflect my character in her quest for wellness, and her being ballsy and pushy and investigating medicine, but also interested in the novel Duped in investigating what goes on when she's traveling to Shanghai, Tokyo, Paris, Milan. What are the secrets? Because she's never. It's obvious that everything's a lie, and it's an upside down Alice in Wonderland world. So let's take a peek.
Okay. So give readers some give the listeners just a little more context. This is
okay.
Go ahead.
2014. It opens in Jackson Square in New Orleans in the French Quarter in front of St. Louis Cathedral with a tarot reader named Novena. Her real name is Amelia. Then it's a flashback to everything that brought her to her hometown. A sudden sickness sidelined her. And through collusion between one person and somebody's mother, they figured that they could offer her insurance. She's uninsurable because of a heart filter. And she could buy a man a truck and help with the family headstones and help a father die. And she doesn't realize they're a nest of borderlines and more, that they're grunt workers for senators and the bad, evil, dark side that she stares into the abyss until it stares or rather leers back at her. And she sees everything from Juarez cartel, major meth deliveries that everyone is in on, and to how the money is made and what happens to people who don't pay. Just the whole thing. But she has to figure it out. Nobody just lays out anything for her. They completely lie all the time. How's that? That's
pretty good. I mean, so it starts off where you're basically, your character, Amelia, has come out of a marriage where her husband has been involved in a pretty serious wreck, has lost his kind of emotional memory, even though he's able to function in the world. Amelia has to raise 3 very rambunctious boys on her own, and not always an easy thing to do. And because of her medical condition, goes to Louisiana because, for all intents and purposes, there's a marriage of convenience in place. But also, to give Amelia credit, she finds things about her lover, soon to be husband, that are moving and deeply emotional, and connects in with not just the sense that he'll be able to provide some medical relief, but she's also willing to fall in love with this guy, which I think is really interesting in a lot of ways. So that's how I see the beginning of the book, and then it just goes off into this amazing journey. So
you're really exciting me hearing about that. I want to go reread the book. But when you say she falls in love, Amelia, there is something innate in that microcosm of the personal falling in love that I think Duped does capture, and I think I have my postdoctorate in falling in love. So when Amelia falls in love, part of it is that he hunts and fishes with her and can spotlight wild hogs or catch a frog looking like a nose tackle. He's so good outdoors. Mm-hmm. But the joke is, because it's funny throughout all of the tragedy and scariness, is that he would take her hunting every day in deer season at 5:30 and place her on a stump, maybe with rabbit poop, and say, "Be quiet, don't even have your cell phone on vibrate, I'll be 100 yards over there." And all deer season she thinks she's hunting with him. But the joke is, as soon as he put her there, he went and used her house for clandestine activities. He was never hunting with her. So everything is our concept, right? And because of qualia, we can never really even understand what another person thinks fully is the color red, much less the truth. Yeah. So here we go.
Well, why don't you grab a passage and read a little bit of Duped for us?
Okay, so there's a boys' detention center where Amelia's husband has his job back after a meth bust and felonies for spousal abuse that are suddenly expunged by a senator.
And what's the husband's name?
Seth.
Seth, okay.
Louisiana has pockets of rural communities in which powerful people who operate behind the scenes get funding through false fronts and manipulate everything. The main industry on the outskirts of Attaway, besides contracts for wild pig hunters, the debris from clear cutting was the perfect habitat for breeding the destructive hogs, which could weigh up to 300 pounds, was the youth detention center. Seth and Shine's Uncle Speedy made it happen politically. He appointed the board of directors and management for Seymour Youth. This ensured Seth's future, his parents thought. Shine, his brother, had a woodworking shop and the bait shop. The executive director of the Youth Detention Center was a Baptist minister and a high-ranking Mason. The CEO was an ex-Air Force man. The head of psychiatry at Ochsner Medical Center was the shrink for the incarcerated youth. They got a little careless in their rural outpost. The shrink hypnotized boys for their betterment. The chaplain, a priest ordained to give the Red Mass after his audience with the Pope, was a little overzealous, posting online that his avocation was interaction with Seymour detention youth daily, which he was fond of saying was a pontifical blessing one-on-one. These leaders felt impunity, the kind of hubris that always leads to downfall. A child's coffin was prominently displayed in the Votech building where Seth currently trained delicate Caucasian boys, hearts visible beating behind ribs as they worked shirtless. He couldn't give an explanation or reason the child's coffin was placed there other than a joke. Their silence was all that was required to ensure that everything would continue as usual at Seymour Youth. Certainly law enforcement and judicial authorities knew those in charge were untouchable. People could get away with anything in this neck of the woods. That was the status quo. Plus, it was easy to dispose of any troublesome boys because of all the hiding places, runaways, they'd say. Okay, now Seth had a childhood trauma that was similar, exact surgery at the exact age as Jeffrey Dahmer. So I'm going to read a bit about that, okay?
Okay.
Seth's childhood trauma. Little Seth in the hospital shouted, "My pee-pee hurts, it hurts, Mama, help, stop it." He was in the hospital for 2 weeks following bladder, kidney, reconstructive surgery at age 4. He told me he'd scream and cry at the top of his lungs when he saw a blood clot in a tube beside his bed that it was about to be recycled, a recirculation of blood with clots. But he was only 4, so he might have imagined it. That or the pain clouded his memory. But he is quite adamant about the facts, that he'd seen a clot in clear tubing and knew it would go through his pee-pee, and that the pain was excruciating, and sometimes he'd pass out. Agnes was present, his mother, when he recounted these events. He remembered his mother saying, "You just quiet down, we'll get you some ice cream, cold ice cream and birthday cake once you're home." Seth's old man was in the hall, pockets pulled inside out, looking helpless. He had a pompadour and wore leisure suits, pants of baby blue polyester. He was a big man. Seth would scream and passers-by pulled out their wallets. "I tell you, it's embarrassing to be up here empty-handed. I don't even have gas money, much less a nickel for ice cream," the big man said, moving his face side to side sheepishly. They each gave him $1. He'd asked, just like Seth would in the future. He purchased a little bottle of Aquavelva, cigarettes, and chitlin, and headed out to bet on dice games behind Teddy's juke joint. Is it possible that the surgery was to initiate him, through pain, into being an operative? It was the same surgery Jeffrey Dahmer endured. I saw a docudrama about Dahmer's life. The shrink blamed his parents' delight in torture, the patient's delight in torture, on the same surgery Seth had at the same age Dahmer had been when he had this operation. The oddness struck me after hearing from Seth and his mother about the surgeon showing up in Attaway every year in a costume. He'd appear dressed up as a Disney character or a clown. He'd always have on some outlandish outfit that was a disguise. Seth was pulled out of school and taken to meet his surgeon wearing funny clothes in a parking lot in Attaway. This is typical handler behavior. They regularly reappear in the life of a person groomed to be an operative. It is typical to induce so much pain before age 5 that one dissociates. That predisposes one to more easily entering dissociative states in the future when necessary to bring up alters. The Our Lady Hospital surgeon who performed Seth's reconstructive surgery was also a founding board member of Lariat Labs in Attaway.
So what you're detailing here, which I think is very interesting and of interest to the listeners, is the fact that you are kind of excavating this on a personal, sort of fictional level, this modus operandi for creating people who are traumatized and then having this handler relationship emerge. And so this is all in your novel. You have experienced this for, firsthand, generally speaking. And you're kind of breaking this down for people in a way that isn't just clinical or in terms of expose, but there's kind of this kind of rich semi-fictional narrative where you're exposing this stuff.
Yes. I'd like to read a little more from a section forward that picks up Amelia being able to see her father in Seth, the character Seth.
Okay, go for it.
I can see Seth's dad in him. I envision the polyester double-button expandable waist, flared leg slacks with the pockets turned inside out in the hall of the hospital, and I see what a grifter he was, saying it was gas money he needed to get his little boy home from the hospital. Room 205, the door was open, and he'd point to Seth as he solicited. I looked up the things I've found in the house on the internet, because by this time, Amelia has found heinous things, and she doesn't know what they are. I found good old boy S&M sites and identified some of the seemingly unique items. The country boy's ponytail can be fashioned out of a plastic shovel handle to stick up someone's and use later for flagellation. Specific instructions are online. Shred one end of the fiberglass tube like a fringe. Leave more length for a handle. It's all there, all the explanations. I called drug hotlines, and ex-addicts told me why the BBs were placed on the bedside table and picked up the first thing in the morning. Seth would sit up on the edge of the bed and say he was going to shoot rats as he picked up a BB, but I'd hear a shaking sound behind the locked bathroom door. He used the BBs and syringes to break up any chunks of meth before shooting. And he didn't have a black widow spider bite. The dope coagulated at the end of his toe, which nearly burst. I'm left with Seth claiming everyone knows I'm crazy and that everything I say is made up. His mother says I turned Seth into a gay man. His cronies are having my job investigated. The task force is tired of babysitting me. My body, looks, age, and illness do not lend themselves to others giving sympathy. Most seem rather squeamish, as if I have fallen from a high place, which I have. This scares them. And I'm left to stomp the life out of any belief in sexual love, romanticism, commitment, truth in a relationship. I destroy the altars of belief that anything matters to the majority of people who comprise society. It's deceit, dollars, and supply. You want to hear what I found?
Sure.
Okay. Later in the evening, while applying heel lotion from a round jar which I bought at Walmart, I touched something solid in the lotion as I dipped my fingers in the lilac-colored, lavender-scented jar. Alarmed, I tenuously dipped my fingers in it again. I touched something besides lavender foot lotion in the jar. It felt like a stone. I pulled it out, and what I saw made me scream. I dropped it in the sink and ran. When I worked up the courage to re-enter the bathroom, I found a carefully carved skull in miniature, a skull carved from bone with yellowed teeth made from real ivory. It was grotesque, but much detail and time went into creating it. It looked very old and seemed to be museum quality, a voodoo altarpiece, African, no Mardi Gras trinket. This was crafted with malicious intent. My mind raced trying to figure out when I'd last let Shine, Seth's brother, in, or if it could have been placed there by Seth, or perhaps it was placed there in one of the many break-ins. I covered it with a velvet wine sack, all I could think of, and cracked it into pieces on the floor with a hammer, scared to death of a real curse. I felt a malevolent power in that object. I carried the velvet bag, crushed miniature skull across the street to the little Indian River, threw it as far as I could. It sank and joined many other secrets that would never be dredged up from the depths.
So you found this skull inside of this jar of lotion.
Yes.
And so, what is your take on that?
Well, it was constant. Like there was a boathouse in the novel Duped, and Amelia would go to the boathouse to write. And one day, Amelia is crossing the road, and she's lived in other countries where there were earthquakes, and it felt like an earthquake. But what happened was that the verticals had all been cut nearly through, and the movement of a wake of a boat caused collapse. It was a setup, a trap. If she'd been sitting under it, she would have been stuck under wood at the bottom of the river. And a week later, she's moved a pallet under a huge pecan tree. And the farmers tell her the next day, when a 2,000-pound branch has fallen over her riding pallet, that the limb was mostly through with a clean cut. It wasn't lightning or a dead limb. So, and there were 16 break-ins Amelia experienced. So things kept happening until she was told to get out of town. And finally she did, and that's when she figured it out.
So this is almost like a dark southern version of Eat, Pray, Grow. Like it's the shadow of Eat, Pray, Grow.
It's a Gothic, the southern Gothic take on, yes, Eat, Pray, Love.
Eat, Pray, Love. Thank you. I always throw the grow in there for some. I don't know why.
It's all about growth.
Yeah, Eat, Pray, Love. But this is interesting because it's coming from this feminine perspective, who's really in search for love and acceptance and soulful bonding, and she's got all these really interesting gifts. She's a journalist. She writes about boxers in Mexico, and she's a trader, a futures trader. I mean, really, and a very interesting character apart from the story itself. And then there's this kind of, I wouldn't call it a fatal flaw, but there's definitely sort of the kairotic need to be accepted and loved in a very deep and profound way, in which most people in her life are, they're swimming on the surface, and she's a deep diver. And then you throw in the physical maladies, and then the layers of deception, in the medical industry. And it's a really riveting read. Do you have any excerpts that you pulled aside or put aside for some of the medical stuff, which I really am pretty interested in?
Sure. Rob, thank you so much for every word and sentence you're saying about the book, because I've worked on writing this for 10 years. I was sure and confident and promised friends and allies I would be finished in 07, 08 at the latest, at which point Hatchet Lee, Stephen King's publisher, read 4 chapters and wanted the book. But I needed more perspective and more time. Yeah. So I'm looking for some medical parts. I also wanted to read a few short chapters about the beauty when I went to the Isle of Ibiza and worked with Carmelite nuns who had dispensation to get massage, and all of that beauty and light from a 14th century chapel with El Greco paintings on the wall of those nuns really informed us. It was light vis-a-vis dark, and the lightness there helped me realize what the truth was, and helped the character Amelia save lives and stop the badness.
Go for it.
Okay, I'm not quite there. I have to go to the index. Does your audience have any questions popping up in text as I read?
No, because we're doing this as a pre-tape, but I'm sure they will. You're going to be reading on Tuesday night in Austin, correct?
Yes.
And for people that actually listen to this and are kind of in the area, where is that going to be taking place and what time?
Bookwoman at 5501 North Lamar, which is right a little bit south of Koenig Lane, and there'll be an after party at Thundercloud.
Thundercloud's the after party's at Thundercloud Subs.
No, it's the other one. I think it's called Thundercloud, but the reading itself will be August 8th, 7 p.m. Bookwoman, 5501 North Lamar.
Okay.
And then on Koenig, we're going to have an after. I guess that's
it's a bar. Is that a bar, Thundercloud? Is that a bar?
A bar restaurant.
Okay. All right. Cool. So if you're in the Austin area on Tuesday night, you want to check it out. That's where Christine's going to be. And now for people, and we'll get back to this at the end. We'll do this one more time. But if people are interested in the book, they can get it online through Amazon. They can also buy hard physical copies, correct?
Sure, they can get the print book from Amazon, Create Space, Barnes & Noble, anywhere. Just look for Duped, and the color is very unique. It's an artist, Slater Brown, and a photograph by Chrissy Dollar of many, many faces. It's a brown with black ink cover. It's of many faces. It's very abstract art.
Well,
Duped by Christine Maynard, you bet. You can have an ebook, a print book. The print book is $12.95.
Well, I'll make sure that there are links on the various pages so people can go right to Amazon and get it. Now, you and I haven't talked about this, but do you have a website?
No, I've taken that down. I have a Facebook linked page, which is Duke the Novel has a Facebook page.
Okay, we'll link to that as well.
So I'll read a little about the nuns.
Okay.
So beautiful. I rented an Airbnb spot in Dalton Villa, a 6,000-year-old necropolis. I walked around taking it all in, feeling the joy of having escaped to live another day, sometimes swimming in the Mediterranean. Ibiza is the hang for the rich and famous, but I did not go clubbing. Judy and I did luxuriate on gorgeous beaches, and it seemed impossible to not overhear deal-making for films and discussions of Cannes or to meet Bollywood producers. I wrote in my journal, I liked the yachties and hoped to find a few of them I knew from the Caribbean. From my time in Antigua when the boys were little, I jump off rocks into 30 feet of green and azure water. The waves are gentle yet commanding. The ocean tastes healing. The sun doesn't burn, it just warms this time of year. Judy lived below me. We have a window between our casas, through which we call to each other from balcony and garden. I am the upstairs neighbor. Once again, the Ethel role to Lucy, and this time she even has a Desi Arnaz Spanish man. Yesterday, led by intuition, I above our homes and took a left toward the tip-top of the insular fortress, which is home to 700 people. I happened to find chapel doors open as the wind picked up and the skies became very dark. Two huge, beautifully ornate carved doors beckoned, an invitation extended. I entered the chapel bedecked with gold and red and Castilian art of the Pieta, Mary holding a dead alabaster Jesus, and paintings of conquistadors bending to a homunculus baby Jesus, angels suspended with gold-leaf wings. Standing, kneeling, sitting, and repeating, every once in a while the eldest Mother Superior with bad ankles and a cane would turn around and smile, a beautiful smile my way. These diminutive nuns came out single file and held their own mass, sans priest. A few devout Catholic women arrived, and we sang songs to Jesus, the prettiest love songs I'd heard in a while. Tarde mi amor and si mi falte un amor, not a soy, not a soy. If I falter in my love, I am nothing. I sang and sang in Espanol, and then we looked at this huge statue of El Señor, that is Jesus, and the paper in my hand I was following was written, Dija al Señor los intenciones personal. Tell Jesus what your personal intentions are. What are my personal intentions? More to the point, in this sacred magical setting where I'm finally feeling safe and empowered, saved from everything threatening by the sea, sun, and separation, what do I want Jesus to give to me, and what would my intentions be to do with the gift? Beyond the request that my boys and their families be happy and nourished in all ways and well and healed of everything that might need healing, and that all boys and girls everywhere no longer suffered, only that I become a clear channel for Christ's love, a clearer channel, and that I more fully manifest the fruits of the Spirit, that I continue to have the opportunity to heal in some way all that I need, and that I, as my Father taught me, love mightily, practice loving every living being, really practice, love mightily. I prayed that I would have discernment and learn the truth about what really went on in Attaway, at my house, at the boys' detention center, and with all those people I called termites, who I'd been surrounded by. I wanted to see clearly. The lightning cracked all around Daltvila. It hailed, stormed, and thundered, and we sang love songs to Jesus Christ together. Afterwards, I spoke to the nun escorting me out. I told them that I'd given massage. They said they were cloistered, no one could do anything for them. But a few weeks later, I received a call. They had special dispensation to receive massage from me. So that's pretty autobiographical, that little section.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually pretty amazing in many ways. I love the language in that.
Thank you.
One of the things I wanted to ask you is, what's it like now to have toiled over this for 10 years and have it be finished? And
I'm completely lost. I'm abjectly, with child's mind, learner's mind. I'm a tabula rasa. I'm completely lost.
Yeah.
I have been having bad posture for a yoga teacher and student for so long, and hammering the last 7 months, just writing, sometimes writing and editing 17 hours a day. And I don't know. My first thought this morning was, well, I'll just get up and write something else. But I'm in a very open enrollment of my psyche period. I don't know.
Yeah, now it's time for you to market this book.
That and a screenplay, and I feel like it will resonate and speak to people, particularly women, so much that it will do a lot of the walking for itself. Mm-hmm. I'm a promoter by nature, but I'm not going to go bookstore to bookstore across America. And I noticed last night it's selling in England and in other parts of the European Union, because I've seen some pounds come through and some euros just last night.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great.
Happy.
Well,
Yeah.
It would be wonderful if all of a sudden, word of mouth, this book takes off, and next thing you know, you don't really have to do anything. But it always helps to stoke the fires a little bit. But I was just curious, it's like, now you toiled over this for 10 years.
Yes.
And now you're not toiling over it, not in the same way. It's like your raison d'etre has shifted a bit now. And
I have a lot more REM space in my mind, and I really don't know. I have a Hindu friend, Rishabh, and I've used his name in the novel, and he speaks of iterations, of which iteration he will be next of Shiva, as he's a Shivite. And I like that idea that within this incarnation we have many iterations. Mm-hmm. So I don't know who my next Kali iteration will be. Mm-hmm. I don't know what causes, except to that love mightily thing my daddy taught me, and helping other people and shining light and being an empath. I don't know what my purpose or work will be. I just don't. But I know I appreciate and love you, Robert Phoenix, and I thank you for letting me read on your show.
No, you're welcome. If you could have one sentence to share with people why this book is important, what would that sentence be?
The unraveling is up to you. Everybody's duped.
Everybody's duped. Well, clearly, excuse me, we're in a time where reality has become inverted, and in this kind of inversion state, it's easy to see where this whole duplicity has occurred in our lives, or at least how it's occurring at this present moment in time. Well, Christine, I could probably talk to you for another hour easily and have you read more of the book, but I think that that people should go find it on Amazon or reach you on Facebook and start to have a dialogue with you and support the arts. We're talking. How much is the book for download on Amazon? How much is it?
$3.99.
$3.99 on Amazon, and I guarantee you, once you open it up, you will get more than $3.99 worth of edification and deep entertainment with the book. And of course, we all like the physical world. And if people wanted to have you sign a copy, could you pull that off somehow?
They can write to me, and I'll mail them a signed copy for just the price of the book and the shipping.
There you go.
And my address is dupedthenovel@gmail.com.
Dupedthenovel@gmail.com.
I'd love to hear from people, whether it is about diagnosed illnesses, medical institution, finding out the truth and how life-changing that is and how it's unending, the unraveling, and to support them and advocate for people who have any of the situations that I've learned and in my 59 years grown through and will continue to grow through.
Well, there you go. Not only is Christine an author, she's a resource as well. Christine, it's been wonderful. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and I will see you at the book signing and the reading on Tuesday night.
Thank you, Robert. It was a pleasure. Okay, adios.